Very good, friends. Hi, Doc South here. With another shared memory of the days of my youth when I was a kid in Chester, New Jersey. I thought you might enjoy. I'm trying to give you just insights as to what it was like growing up in a wonderful town, Chester. Especially back in those days, Chester was still quite the country village, really, in the middle of all these farm fields. It's a fantastic place to live and grow up, I think. And I dare say I could come up with a good 100 videos. And then even maybe my young adult life was spent there too, high school days. Perhaps we can go from there. But right now, I sure do appreciate the History of Chester website accepting these and sharing them with you. I'm having a ball doing them. And they're stories that should be told because Chester was, like I said, just a beautiful place to be. Honestly, I don't want to get all syrupy about it, but honestly, it was. I remember my son hearing some of the stories, and he said, "God, Dad, you really grew up in you had a wonderful childhood," and he's right. Yeah, he's right. My son did okay too, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Anyway, I've been. I think yesterday I knocked out a video about Mr. DeFalco's fifth grade class. Well, guess what? We passed. Yeah, all of us passed, and we wound up in Mr. The next year. That's September. After a wonderful summer, we wound up in Mr. Morris's sixth grade class at Chester Public School. And gosh, I remember Mr. Morris. As the best I can say to describe him, you remember that country and western star, the rockabilly star Conway Twitty? Okay, Conway Twitty? Yeah, Conway Twitty and Mr. Morris could have been twin brothers, as far as I can see. From what I gather, I remember as a kid, you know how Dick Clark had that Saturday night beach nut half hour? I think it was on around 7 o'clock before the regular programming started. Maybe it was 7:30. And he would have like 3 or 4 rock and roll groups come in, sing a song, do a little skit, right? Well, one night he had Conway Twitty. And Conway Twitty's there belting out a song, and I'm looking at him. I think he's sitting at a piano playing it and singing. And I remember I'm looking at it, and I hollered to my mom. I said, "Mom, come here." And she's, "Yeah, well, oh, one of your singers?" I said, "Yeah, that's Conway Twitty, but don't that look like Mr. Morris?" And she says, "You know?" She says, "My God," she says, "it does." I think, she says, "That couldn't be." I said, "I don't know, Ma. It sure sounds like him, too." Conway had just hit a high note. And it sounded like Mr. Morris when he got sore at us. He could go up a numerous decibels, yes. And Mom says, "I don't know. You'll have to ask him." I said, "Gee, I don't know. What if I'm wrong?" And she said, "Well, hey, just go with it." She said, "One day or another you'll find out if you know." If does he ever sing in class? No, he never does. He yells a lot, but yeah. Well, she says you'll just have to, you'll have to look into it further. That's all. She says no harm in asking, I suppose. I said, "Yeah, but I don't know." Anyway, so Mr. Morris, yeah, he did have the ability to hit the high range when he was sore at us. Oh my God! In fact. It was a total body experience. He'd get all tight, the voice would go up, and he would turn like this color. You see that? Yeah, he'd get that red, and rightfully so. I'm not blaming him. Oh, we were rotten kids. By the time those kids that graduated fifth grade, Mr. DeFalco's class, by the time they hit sixth grade, yeah, ball game over. Yeah, there's something happens. Yeah, that's usually why kids wind up in why they have middle schools. I think they have state teachers specially trained to take the stress, and so we weren't bad kids at all, but we were full of it, right? And I imagine Mr. Morris is sitting there. He's got to get some spelling into us, and math and oh my God. So yeah, at times it would get a little rough. And like I said, he'd turn beet red and just be so mad. Oh, and then he'd calm right down. Yeah, get it out of his system. But I remember one time we see, now we were baby boomers, so the classrooms weren't big enough to hold all of us, right? And this one particular class, I think they took a basement room and made it into a classroom, and we were stuffed in there. Yeah, sardines. And the short kids, like me and a friend of mine, Chuck, were up front because the other kids were getting bigger. We were still kind of shrimps. So we were up front. And that way we could see the board better. And we were actually, Chuck and I were right up front. Yeah, right there in the front row. And the blackboard was, honestly, we could reach out and touch it. Okay. It was that, yeah, we were that close. Normally it'd have, a little space. And poor Mr. Mars would have to get there. He'd have to walk the gauntlet there between us and the board and the other kids. And Chuck, I know one day Mr. Mars is writing something, and he's talking, listen, in the 15th century, and he's writing this stuff down. And, well, Chuck whips out his pen. He had this pen, and as Mr. Mars is talking, Chuck noticed that Mr. Mars had his wallet in his back pocket. So what Chuck did was he used that wallet side so that Mr. Mars couldn't feel it. But Chuck was drawing all this graffiti on. Mr. Mars always wore these light blue suit jackets, sort of like Conway Twitty used to do. Yeah, it was kind of a blue-green light color. Yeah, about like that color. And Chuck's drawing, and he's going like this. He's drawing stick figures, and then he's writing little rotten sayings on Mr. Morris's pocket, and it's getting to me. And the rest of the class is quiet as Mr. Morris is talking. And pretty soon, I'm trying to hold it. I'm pulling Chuck's hand away from the short, certain death. And next thing you know, I start guffawing and laughing. Next thing you know, I'm laughing. And I look up from one bout of laughter, and I notice that Mr. Morris's derriere is not in front of us anymore. He's turned around, and we look up, and there he is, and he's looking down, and the color was starting to come to his, and wow, oh my God, did he let into us? Oh my God, and of course, he had no idea. Oh my God, wait till that night when he got into his pajamas and he saw what Chuck had done to his pants. But he's going out of his mind at me for disrupting the class. The nerve of me laughing behind his back. And well, long story short, I get a note and I got to take it up to the principal. A handwritten note from Mr. Morris, a death sentence. I go up the steps. Oh God, and I walk in and there's Mr. Mills sitting behind his desk, the principal. I said, here. He says, okay, let me look here. Oh. So what the heck's the matter with you? Why are you? He says, look, I know you're not a bad kid. You're a good kid. Why are you messing with Mr. Morris like that? I couldn't rat Chuck out. I had to just sit there and take it. I had to take one for the Gipper. And of course, a little later on, here comes Mr. Morris, about 3 minutes later, with Chuck in tow by the collar. He says he confessed. The two of them, they're both guilty. And of course, Mr. Mills is saying, please, just okay. It's all right. It's all right. And we'll straighten this out. Why don't you keep those two away? Maybe separate them. Oh, yeah, they're both short. They got to be so they can see. Well, put them back one. Maybe put some people shorter in front of them. Maybe you get some girls, put some girls up front. Well, that's a good idea. Come on, you two. By then he's starting to calm down. Doggone it, I tell you, the two of you. Boy. And well, all the way down the steps. By the time we got to the classroom, he had reasonably forgotten it, though he did put us two back, which was probably a good thing, kept us from getting expelled, later. Chuck was certainly not reformed. He was repentant, but not reformed. And I was sure to laugh at the next thing he pulled. Chuck he was my Red Skelton, right? Okay, when Red Skelton wasn't around, right? And now the other thing, there was there was we had this one fella in our class who was very, very big farm kid. He was 16. I think he had trouble with reading. I don't think people knew about dyslexia back then, and I think he had it. And he would eventually drop out of school, I think, between sixth grade and seventh grade, and he went on to be a farmer, and did fine. He did die young in a car wreck, but he was he was a decent guy. Big as he was, a kid could turn into a bully, but he never was. He was always very, very good to his friends, and we were all his friends. And but out in the playground, he was in a way he was a little too big to be playing baseball with us and stuff. So, but he did. But one day he was, I guess he was Indian wrestling. You know how you can put your hand out and you grab your opponent's hand, and I think you put your one foot against the other fella's foot, and you pull back and forth till you pull someone down. They go flying over your Okay, well, the Indian wrestling, and he was doing that with two kids at once. And now and then the kids would get him, and now and then he'd get the kids. Mr. Morris saw this and come walking over. And he says, "What are you guys? What is this? Is this Indian wrestling? I've heard of this." Gary says, "Yeah, that's we're not fighting." No, he says, "I could see that." He says, "You're just having some kind of game." Or he says, "Do you mind if I try that?" And Gary says, "What? You and me?" He says, "Yeah, yeah." Well, he says, "Sure, if you want." So, and Gary's, I think usually with the kids. Yeah, I think he kind of let them win now and then, but he wasn't going to let Mr. Morris win. So it was the clash of the Titans. We're all around watching this, and and back and forth, and next thing you know, Mr. Morris goes sailing into the air. Gary let him, oh man, and down he went in that beautiful suit. He's got all grass stains now and mud, but he came up and he shook hands. He said, "Con, that's amazing," and of course Gary was the school hero. There was no anger involved whatsoever. It was just, but yeah, Mr. Morris. I don't know if he ever went for a rematch. I don't know, but he it showed the kind of guy he was. He really liked us kids, but we drove him nuts, right? And And so anyway, and I remember too, there was one thing I remember showed a really good side of him, I thought, was it was polio shot day, and we didn't know about it. Maybe our parents knew but didn't tell us. I wondered why Mom gave me an extra kiss on the way to school, and you find out later that we're going to go get polio shots, and it's like, I really didn't mind getting a polio shot. I figured it's better than getting polio. He said, "Geez, that didn't look like it was much fun at all." And but still, it was a shot. Eventually they gave you. I think you could get like some fluid under your tongue for it, but not then. Yeah, they hadn't developed that yet. I guess they couldn't somehow make it taste good. It's polio. It's polio vaccine. How good could it taste? So we got shots, and we got our shots. We lined up, got our shots, back to class. And one girl in the middle of the class, Mr. Morris was teaching spelling or something, and all of a sudden, out she went, bang, hit the floor, right out of her desk onto the floor, and out like a cucumber. And he comes running over. I can see him still, really worried. And you could see how again, how he liked the kids. And he's looking, oh my God. He says, look, one of you, go get the school nurse. I think she's just fainted. I just want to make sure. You, Joe, get her. And my friend Joe's a big kid, besides that one other big fella. And Joe goes running down the hallway screaming for the nurse. Miss Truax is back in a heartbeat. She's there looking the girl over. Of course, Mr. Morris is saying, give her room, everybody. Let her breathe. She's breathing okay. And he's really worried. And in comes Miss Truax. She looks at her and says, well, she's fainted. And, checks her pulse. She says, she's fine. She'll come snap out of it in a second now. And indeed, that's what she did. And Miss Truax said, come on, I'll just take her down to the nurse's room. We're done with the shots, and she can just rest. There's another child or two have fainted, and I'm just going to let them sit still for a bit, if that's all right, Mr. Morris. He says, well, yes, of course. Gee, I hope she says, no one did anything wrong. She just got people get this reaction sometimes to getting a shot. He says, Miss Truax was a very good nurse, I thought, and very down to earth. And about 20 minutes later, the young lady came back into class, and we all gave her a round of applause. And and then Mr. Mars thanked my friend Joe for running so fast to get help and all that. It was a nice moment, and so anyway, so all in all, a good teacher. And we learned a lot in that class. I know one thing I learned when the teacher's talking, don't be drawing on his pocket. Yeah. And the next day, Chuck caught it for for messing up a pair of trousers. I think a note went home for that one. Yes. Anyway, there you go. God bless, friends. And again, Mr. Morris, I thought good people. Okay. We'll see you later. Oh, but we tried his patience, so rotten kids. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye now.